And I'm really excited to introduce another book by Dan Flitton. I'm going to hold it up. Hopefully, you can see it. And we're really lucky because we have Dan again. How are you doing, Dan?
Wonderful. Thanks, Dan, for asking. Yeah, I'm excited to be back.
You have a lot of really good stuff in this book. And I had to nitpick of what I was going to ask you about. The first thing is with-itness. Can you tell us about with-itness?
Well, yeah, I came across that definition of something I've always practiced when I was volunteering teaching when I was like in my younger 20s. And it's just being able to like read the room, walk in and see what's going on. It's not being judgy, it's being more of curious. So when I walk into a room, I try to figure out like what's the energy like here? What's going on in a room and having that ability to just move with the energy, move with what's going on in the room. And I tried to explain that to people because, people would always ask me, when you walk in a room, people really feel your presence, especially the students. How do you do that? And I would try to explain to them, but when you do research and you come across terms like with-itness, you say, okay, that's perfect. Because that way you can explain your way and how you do it. And then you can show people an article that they can read, and then maybe the conversation can continue. So I didn't come up with the term, but it helps me. But as you research and learn about your personal journey, you're able to find these interesting terms to help explain what you do.
So there's another one that theatrical authority and reliable authority.
Hmm.
Because when you say theatrical, I think kind of like drama. Okay, can you explain that one?
Yeah, I mean, part of being like a classroom teacher is, people say, you can't crack a smile until Christmas. You can't do this, you can't do that. And sure, if you want 30 years of a career, that's going to be long and arduous. But here's the thing, theatrical authority, you walk in and make your presence known. You are expressing yourself in a way that's not entirely you. It's kind of like a mask of you where you're showing a different personality. And if you rely on that, that can take you so far, but then it becomes kind of like a white noise to the kids. But you need to have the reliable authority, and that's having the consequences that you're reliable. Here are the consequences. This happens. I'm going to follow through with it. If you marry them both together, you got something sweet because, students need predictability, they need reliability, but they also need someone that's going to come in and liven the room up a bit with expression, with voices, with how you use your body language. It's all, as you mentioned, like, is it dramatic? Well, yeah. And again, an example I gave to other people when they asked me about this is, one time my wife came in during maternity leave to drop off my lunch for my birthday. And she never really saw my classroom presence before. And she pulled me aside and said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm great." And she asked one of the students, "Is this how Mr. Flitton always acts?" "Oh, yeah." And she never saw that before. And
Ah,
I said, "Well, that's my teacher mask that I wear because when I'm wearing that mask, I know that, I'm on the clock. I have to be careful what I say and how I act. And it's one of those ways of getting the kids' attention, making the presentation, like whatever information you're presenting, make it relatable, it's interesting, and it keeps their attention, it keeps their focus."
so you also talk about students sort of the same way, about discipline problems, where you say it's not so much about behavior, but audience.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a thing that a lot of teachers miss in the first couple of years. If you're having a student repeatedly misbehave, you have to remove the audience. So you always need to, you can't really reason with them if you have the captive audience watching you between the other student trying to solve a problem. The number one thing you need to do is stop the behavior, and then a few minutes later, redirect it privately with the student, whether that be during classroom with a quick conversation on the hall, saying like, "What are you doing? You're better than that. You know what my expectation is. Let's go back and reset. I don't want that to happen. And you don't threaten them at the time, but they just know that you're consistently going to do something, whether it be a call home, they're going to spend time with you in detention at recess time, or they're predictable what you're going to do. So, you remove the audience, you're going to remove the behavior because some kids just thrive on that type of attention, making their friends laugh because they know they're getting the best of you or actually the worst of you. So never fall for that bait and just remove the audience, whether it be at recess time or a quick conversation on the hall.
So speaking of behavior, sort of, you talk about relationships when it comes to proximity, right?
Mm.
And I think you said relationship. So is this interaction with the student?
Yeah, like, I mean, like when you I think what's happening is that when you're close with students, right? Sometimes you're their most consistent adult in their life for that year they're in your classroom and beyond that year that they spent with your classroom. And sometimes they blur that relationship as friendship. And you always have to not shame them, but sometimes find good opportunities to explain, well, where do you think we are with our relationship, right? We're friends, and you always have to correct them. I know that you want to believe that, but we're not. I'll always be your teacher. You'll always be my student. And there's nothing wrong with that type of relationship. Just like, your relationship with your mom and dad, you're always the son or daughter, and your parent's always the parent, right? And the students don't need their teacher as a friend. No, they need someone that's going to be that consistent person that can help guide them, advise them, and make sure they feel safe. And sometimes that gets confusing for the kids because of their age of development.
Then you bring up about um, the beginning of school, even if it's super exciting, is not what most students will remember. And this sort of comes back to relationship. What they'll remember is how you treated them when they were hurting.
Right. So I mean, like it's like students will never ever remember that excellent science lesson you did or that math lesson. They remember those times when everyone else gave up on them, but you were still there with them, cheering them on. They're steady. Who's that person in their corner? Help guiding them through their situation. That you're not using a magic wand to fix it with them, but you're that person that can help guide them to make better choices. And students remember that. Again, like students are always going to change, right? So you can't really base your success in education just on uh, delivery of curriculum, right? You have to always base it on your instruction is based on how do you treat the children? How do you see the children as people? They always have to be seen as a person. And then once you understand them as a person, then you can find the pathway to help them be successful at school. But that always begins with understanding the person first. And that's what the students remember, how you were present, you took the time to understand them, and you were patient with them.
And I think this part is you're talking about teachers. So correct me if I'm wrong. Popularity often depends on comfort, whereas respect depends on character.
Right. I am talking about teachers there because some teachers, again, just a few I've come across in my career are so focused on the kids liking them.
So is this more theatrical, the first part?
Yeah, it's more theatrical
Okay.
where you want the kids to like you and you want you're basically a people pleaser. You want everyone to like you. And again, there's a term that we use in a midnight that we talk about as it's like country club management. If you want everyone having fun, then go work at a country club. With your working in schools, you have to be able to have those courageous conversations, and that comes down to your character. Do you have the right tact? Do you have the right way to tell someone something that's important to them, but not shame them? For them to understand, because the minute that you start shaming someone is the minute that the learning connections in the brain shut down. So, like your character is the way that you can be consistently calm with the students, to be present with the students, understand where they're coming from. Then, once you have all the evidence and all the data, then you can help them. When you're trying to be popular, you're focused more on yourself, very egocentric. And the minute that someone goes against you or doesn't like you, you take that personally. And then that emotion comes out in you and you take it out on the people who aren't digging what you're doing, if you know what I mean. Whereas that character piece, you're consistent no matter good or bad news or wonderful news, whatever, you are consistent with how you react.
The next quote, I don't know if you originated it, but I thought is really interesting. Still has to do with kind of relationship between teacher and student. But you were saying yard duty is teaching upstream.
Yeah.
So most of us would think yard duty is a headache. You have to go out, the kids are yelling and screaming and you're watching them. But you've put a positive spin on it.
Mhm. Well, I mean, like how many of these students, even nowadays, like going back 20 years ago, I'd be on yard duty and yeah, no one wants to do it, but so you have to kind of find a way that to enjoy it. So I always be curious, walking around, asking kids questions like, "Hey, what's anything new going on this weekend? You're going to this new Circle K that's opening, wonderful." And you kind of share how exciting you were when variety stores open when you're their age, and you try to connect to topics when they're their age, like not being too personal with your experiences, but just generalities, right? And you walk up to them with curiosity instead of being judgy because kids don't want to be judged. They want that curiosity piece. So even if something's wrong going on, you say, "Hey, is everyone having a good time here? Is there something I should know about?" It just allow those people to stop whatever they're doing, recorrect it, and then the students know to come see you if something else is bothering them. And as you're walking around, you're gathering information, you're observing. If a colleague's having a problem with a student, you can say, "Well, I did notice that behavior at recess time, and went over to talk to them about it, and I used this, and they seem to have stopped. Have you tried this yet?" Because in education, it's a great profession where you can exchange ideas with one another and you shouldn't have any shame in it. It's that your colleagues are always helping you because it's a community. And that's why you look at the school as a community because we're in there helping each other as colleagues, as teachers, and the students and everyone to succeed. But you get a lot of information when you're out there on yard duty. Plus, if you're out there for 15 minutes, you can easily get 1,500 steps. Who doesn't like that? And you're also getting free vitamin D,
Ah,
you
so
know,
there's exercise bonus for the teachers too then.
yeah, exactly. It's a 15-minute walk. I mean, like it's wonderful. And again, it just depends on your frame of mind. Yeah, there's going to be things that don't go correct on your duty, but then again, it's in those moments, unplanned, unscripted, that you can teach children how to behave, how to see right from wrong. And then when you're constantly out there day after day after day, you get to see if they understood your lesson or were you not clear enough. It helps you develop different tools in your toolbox about how to make connection with other students who are not necessarily in your classroom. And that's where I talk about in the book about the school teacher versus the classroom teacher. You want to aim to be the school teacher instead of just the classroom teacher because you're being a service to all the students, not just the 24 or 30 in your classroom.
That's actually what I found very interesting about the yard duties that you're helping the next, whoever the kids are going to next.
Mhm.
So there's a thing, I guess this is to do with whether it's ceremonies or special events. And I'm going to read this. If everything depends on the same people, the system is weak.
Mhm. Right. So, if a school relies on the same people to do the coaching or the plays or the assemblies, what happens when those people move on to different schools? What happens if life circumstances doesn't allow them to do that type of extra stuff at the school? Then what you have is a vacuum because no one else has been trained on how to do it. Like even setting up a sound system with wireless mics, it's not hard, but if you've never done it before, it's hard. So it's about building capacity within the school so the same people aren't being used the same time. And the people who are coaching or doing the assemblies or doing the masses or whatever extracurricular activity there is need to be open on bringing on apprentices, if you will. and showing people how it's done because a lot of people see like the tip of the iceberg, like the finished product, but they don't see all the hours outside of teaching it takes even to run a simple assembly. There's a lot of thought, there's a lot of practice, a lot of prep going into that, and people don't understand all the effort that goes into. So if you're a teacher and you are the person who does assemblies, see if there's some younger teachers or older teachers, anyone who wants to help out and train them, because then you're building capacity and it could takes a load off of your shoulders and it doesn't always depend on you.
I
And then
like the idea that you're saying apprentice. It's not like, here you go, you do this now. It's like, I'll show you, I'll be there with you, but I'm going to let you lead the show. Like, I'm going to let you run it. Correct.
yeah.
Okay. You, so this is a really important thing because it has to do, I would say, with the school system, but pretty much any system. So even the business world. And you talk about burnout, but I like that you say burnout doesn't mean someone has to quit or take, 6 months or a year off. You some say there's other options. Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was in a classroom teacher, when I was kind of feeling a little burned, I would ask to get moved to a different grade or a different division, right? Like my biggest leap was going from teaching grade 7 down to grade 3. Whoa. I thought it was going to be easy, and I could have never, I was so wrong. It was such a hard transition for me. I felt like a brand new teacher, even though I had 7 years of teaching under my belt at the time, right? And but it was wonderful because I got to work with new people that inspired me, that helped me ignite my love of teaching the younger students. And I was able to share with them classroom management practices, how to speak with parents, and other things I did that helped them learn as well. So it was exciting because we're continuously learning from each other and exchanging ideas, which kind of got me excited again and avoided the burnout. Thought it was wonderful. And what I always would say to teachers too, when I work with them as a vice principal, I could kind of see the signs of the burnout, and I would mention to them, well, you can, why don't you think about switching schools? And they're like, well, they feel loyal to their school, right? Which is nice. Loyalty is a nice character trait to have. But I said, well, if you move schools, I think, because I've been to so many schools, my board, I said, I think you'll probably find your tribe and better people here that you'll probably enjoy working with, and you'll be closer to home as well. But then they said, well, what about the school? I said, well, the school will continue, allow someone else to come in and take over. That's not your responsibility. And many of the times when people did take my advice on the transfer, it worked out really well for them. Because, like, when you're brand new to a school community or in any job, really, you're brand new, you're the best version of yourself for the first 3 or 4 years until the comfort sets in. Then, when the
So,
comfort sets in, that's when sometimes the cynicism and burnout starts to happen. But if you feel that it's time in education, especially, you can change grades, divisions, schools, and be the best version of yourself at all times.
so it's not always just about someone feel their class is horrible and they can't handle it. Sometimes it's just I don't feel like I'm getting a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it's
I'm not,
stagnant.
I've done what I can do here. That's
Mhm.
okay. I believe you said you came up with this term,
Mhm.
Google lazy.
Right. Well, I kind of saw that coming out of the gates back in, I believe it was 2014 when the diffusion of Google Docs started to become a reality in our school system. And at first it was wonderful because, like people could easily make slide decks and the students could, share their information with their teacher. And at the beginning of that, it was maybe, I don't know, 2, 3 hours a week. But then I started noticing when Chromebooks became available and they were a cheaper resource, you walk by classrooms and although they're quiet, there's not a lot of engagement going on. And kids are grabbing stuff from any website, putting it into their work, and not really engaging in critical thinking. So the assignment is done, but was there any real critical thinking done here? And now with AI, students can look up anything, come up with an answer, submit it, and they get a mark on it. But that's really interfering with their ability to think through problems. Because Dan, you and I would, when we were in elementary school, we'd have to go to the library, we'd have to go talk to our crazy uncle or something to get
Yeah.
information off, what I mean, from someone. But I guess that got us engaged with another person and made us think, well, that can't be true. Come on. And then we'd go dig for more and more. Whereas now we look up something, we can find it and get the answer. And the primary use of technology for most students is communication and entertainment. Productivity is not very high. You know what I mean? Like back when computers first came on the classroom, you'd have one computer like a Macosaurus in the corner, and so when I wanted to design how students can a lesson how students can use the computer program, I'd give them the instructions, and they'd have to produce the instructions using the program on a sheet of paper, right? Using the computer and print, right? So then I would put them out to other classrooms so they can get that done as well. So I was showing the kids how to use the computer, but now we're using it to extract information and throwing it into a doc and saying we've done our work. Another thing too is like teachers, again, this is an anti-technology, but I get it because people were criticizing teachers saying, how come they can leave at 3:30? And I always have to say to them, well, it kind of sounds like you're being judgy. Why don't you be a little more curious? I said back in the day when you and I started, all of our resources were physical resources in the classroom. So yeah, we had to stay for an hour or two, maybe 2 hours after work to get our lesson plans done and get the resources ready. Whereas now all that information is in their pocket. So they can leave at 3:30 and work from home on it. They don't have to bring all those resources home. It's a lot easier. But then it comes back to the thought, well, if you're just copying information and putting it into a slide deck, well, do you really know what you're presenting?
Oh,
Like,
that's a good point.
like when I was beginning teaching, I would be teaching subjects I didn't know much about, like science. Or maybe there was a part of Canadian history I didn't know much about. So I would practice the lesson plan at night, do the research, so you're becoming an expert overnight on the subject. So you had to really know your subject matter because you were the person the students were depending on to deliver that subject. I mean, I'd be up to like 1 in the morning practicing and pacing and writing out chart papers of notes so I could walk around the classroom so I can keep an eye on the kids instead of writing on the blackboard, with my back turned to them. So that I increase the engagement. So the Google Lazy with the teachers, like it's again, it's not anti-technology. It's just like, but you're not really learning the material as well.
Okay. Use technology, but never let it make minds weaker.
Hmm.
What does sharpen the saw mean?
Okay, well, sharpen the saw comes from Stephen Covey, right? He's saying like you always have to do something in your life to sharpen your saw and not let your saw, your knowledge, your way of living, right? Your person become dull. So you always need to sharpen your saw, meaning your mindset, your intellect, your life force, in order to become still remain interesting and relevant. So you always want to learn something. Every year as a teacher, I learned something new, whether it be karate, whether it be jujitsu, whether it be magic, whether I'm learning how to put on a drama camp for students. Even like back in the fall, I learned how to publish books on Amazon Direct Publishing, trying to find out the all the different things about publishing that you thought were pretty easy, but are actually quite complicated. Like just
That's
being
so
a
good.
gutter in a book, the center part of a book. I spent a whole weekend learning how to put a gutter in the book, so but I'm always learning, and that puts you in the place of the student. Because when you stop learning and stop learning new things, that is, um, you forget what it's like to be that student, learning things for the first time, the frustration or the anxiety or the stress it feels like to learn something. So if you're constantly learning new stuff, you realize, oh, I bet you my student's feeling that way. You get to live vicariously. Well, I don't know if that's the right term there, but you know what I mean. Your empathy increases
Yeah.
and your saw
Well,
gets.
you're a student if you don't know the information. So what do you think of this concept? If and this is not just teaching, but if you stop learning, it's time to retire.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you look at some of my teacher friends, like they got out of teachers college and they're like great, good teachers, but they just stop learning. And they look at me like I don't know what I'm doing. I look at them saying, "Well, what do you do?" You know what I mean? But to each their own. Like I just love learning. And when I teach a class, my students know that I love learning. Like I can't fake it. You know what I mean? But again, it gets me excited about other things. And even if I taught the same thing over and over again for years, you never lose that excitement of learning it for the first time, right? And as you're reading more and you're learning more, taking courses, you can go back to when you first learned that as a kid, see what the excitement is, and show to your students what the excitement is, if that makes sense. So you never learn that love of learning, that moment, that aha moment that comes to you. You want to see that in the kids.
I always worry when someone stops learning, they're saying, I know everything. That's
Mhm.
what scares me because nobody knows everything,
No.
especially when it comes to teaching or technology. Like it never stops growing, expanding.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's why I think they get frustrated too, Dan, is with their jobs because they stop the learning piece and they don't realize there's more out there that can make their jobs easier. Like when I was a VP at one school, I had this one fella who never used technology, refused. He was technophobic. So then part of his teacher performance appraisal, I put in what his next step is going to be about learning about computers. And he fought me on it, but I said, no, I'll come to your classroom every day. And I did every day for 3 months. And after the 3 months, he looked at me and he said, so why didn't anyone show me this wonderful device
yeah.
before? This makes teaching so much easier. I'm like, well, that's what we're trying to tell you, but I'm glad we had the moment together for the 3 months. I'm glad that you trusted me to show you how this can make your life easier. He goes, but it's absolutely easier. Like I can look up information, I can do this and this and I know. But he didn't want anyone to learn. But I pushed him until and we had the relationship too where he trusted me. And then he learned, he said, and that was a good example of why you need to learn. Because yeah, it does make your job more efficient. It's a little bit easier. And it really sparks that joy. Because when he was looking up stuff on websites, it was sparking his joy of learning again. Because he's actually learning alongside with the students about,
Yeah, we're not being anti-technology
no.
in our conversation. We're just saying you still got to use your brain, use
Mhm.
it or lose it. Um, and I do believe that's if you're not using your mind, it will just say, "Oh, I don't need to worry about this." But okay. So, is there anything else about your book you wanted to say?
Well, we don't have enough time, Dan, to talk about that, but yeah, there's a lot of good pearls in there for beginner teachers and even teachers with years of experience. Like even one of the teachers that helped me give me feedback on my book is what I did is I gave my book to a second year teacher, a teacher with 25 years experience, and to a retired teacher, right?
Right.
And the one with 25 years experience did text me and say, hey, I used one of your suggestions in the book about removing the audience for this one kid I'm constantly having problems with. And it's been a week and it's worked. And I said, well, and so she was amazed how, here she thought 25 years in, as you mentioned, Dan, you think you know everything, but she didn't know that little piece that I practiced all of my career, right? And even my retired friend said the report card section is very important for teachers to read too, because in that section I talk about how report cards are leadership, how they're communication, how it's way to build trust with parents and having those deposits with parents for goodwill.
Yeah, there's so much more we could have gone over, but I'm going to recommend you get the book. Um, I'll hold it more like this. That was fantastic. Thanks so much, Dan. And you have another book. I won't point it out right now, but hopefully we can do this again later once I've gone through that book as well.
All right, sounds like a plan, Dan. Thanks for your time today.
At the end of this, so everybody, you can find this book on Amazon And until next time, be safe, be happy, be positive, and thrive.